Glad you could join us here today on our virtual yoga studio. The class that you've joined today is focusing on the low back, mostly to relieve low back pain, which most of us will experience at one time or another in our lives, some of us more often than others. When we hear, oh, I've got a backache. Oh, my aching back. My back hurts. Most often, we're talking about the low back, the lumbar spine, which is what we're going to work on today. And the reasons for that are many. We lifted something too heavy. We bent over the wrong way. We did a lot of repetitive movements. Our core is weak. There's a lot of physical reasons why the back hurts. Not always an explanation for it. In regards to running and physical activity, sometimes it can be overused, not taking enough rest days, not stretching enough, cross training enough. The longer you run, longer distances, the more that could potentially impact the back. Because as we get tired, because we're out for 2 hours, an hour, 2 hours more, um, that's when we kind of start to hunch and round the shoulders because we're tired, and the body can only stay upright so long. And that rounding of the spine, the rounding of the shoulders can get into the low back and start to impact that. There's a multitude of reasons, no one particular reason, but it is something, low back pain, lumbar pain, that happens to most of us throughout our lifetimes. So I'm going to show you today some poses and stretches that can, number one, hopefully help to alleviate some of that back pain. And number two, to strengthen the low back. So hopefully we don't experience the pain again or not for a long time. All right, let's come lay on our backs. We'll start just a couple grounding poses, some good, easy opening little stretches. And again, a couple things you can do right from the start if your back hurts to help alleviate that pain. We're going to come on to our backs right away. We're going to hug both knees to the chest and kind of hug in close. I'm just going to start first, just really easy, rocking a little right and left, side to side. This little movement just by itself, if your back is really sore or tight, can really help make it feel better. And now we're going to start to circle around on the low back. So the visual I like to get students here is, imagine you have like a clock, pasted, glued, stuck to your low back, and you're circling around. Take those circles the other direction, go counterclockwise, so to speak. That as you circle, you want to make sure to press every hour of that clock onto the mat. Just get one more little circle here. All right, now you're going to keep the right knee hugged in, and you're going to straighten the left leg long. So the knee can be bent, the leg is mostly straight. Most of us will probably be on the heel, back of the leg can lift a bit, and the knee can be really bent. Ground the shoulder blades as you gaze up towards the sky, and give that right knee a nice little gentle hug in, just for one more breath. And then just simply change sides, hug the left knee in, slide, kind of wiggle that right leg straight. Again, it's fine. The back of the calf, back of the knee, back of the thigh lifts. If it's not easy to ground the leg, keep the knee bent if that feels better. Just hug that left knee in towards the belly, towards the chest for another moment. All right, now release the arms by the sides of the mat and take both legs up to the sky. All right, point the toes. Try to press the inner knees together. And once again, your knees, you can make a generous bend in the knees or a little bend in the knees. Don't think you have to lock the knees out and have the legs super straight. What's going to be really important in this next little warm-up drill is to keep that low back grounded, okay, that lumbar spine and the sacral, even further down the sacrum, keeping it pressing into the mat and not let it arch up off the mat. If you feel it start to do that, you're going to lift the legs back up a little bit. All right, ground the shoulder blades, ground the palms, point the toes, ground the tailbone, and you're slowly going to start to lower the legs down a little at a time. Point the toes. Again, if you start as you get lower, the low back starts to arch up. This is where you stop Otherwise, if you can, go just a little bit lower to feel the core engage the lower abs, and then really ground that tailbone and slowly bring the legs back up to where we started. We're going to do that 2 more times, so slow. Just kind of observing. Again, you get beyond, say, 45-degree angle with the legs, and that low back starts to curl up. Don't go down any further and maybe even come back up a little. But if you can, lower them down a little bit further and then slowly bring them back up to the sky. We're also do that 1 more time. So this is really an exercise to learn how to ground the low back and kind of stretch it out and lengthen it as well. Lower the legs again to where you can still keep that low back grounded. And then last time, bring it back up to the sky. From here, bend the knees, step the feet to the mat. You're just going to roll to one side and come all the way up and find a seated position. So come sit in a nice, easy cross-leg position, either shin in front. Take a moment to sit up tall. So what we want to practice here is just sitting, but we want to feel here lengthening up from the low back. So again, we talked about, I mentioned earlier before we began, how low back pain, one of the reasons for it can be to start to round the shoulders. And that was in particular referencing if you're out for a longer run and you start to get tired and start to kind of lose that posture. Well, that can happen anytime, whether you're out for an 18-mile run or you're just sitting watching TV or sitting at your computer. All right, so you always want to be focusing, whether you're standing, running, hiking, sitting, at lengthening up from the low back. So you want to practice that nice tall posture. So you don't want to be slouching, kind of feeling a little more spread through the sit bones. Instead, lengthen up, bring the hand to the low back and kind of press the palm there and find how that just kind of gently lifts everything up. All right, from here, drop the right hand to the mat outside the right hip, have a little bend in the elbow. And let's take the left arm over the ear and just start in a nice, easy side stretch. So we also want to lengthen through the sides of the waist and the rib cage, and maybe turn the right side of the chest and look under the left arm. Keep the left hip rounded. It likes to pike up here. So if you feel that happening, come out of the side bend a bit or get a folded blanket, a firm folded blanket under your seat. Stay here, maybe reach out a little more for the last breath. And then slowly rise, inhale, and take the other side. Left hand to the mat. Take the right arm over the ear, so that left elbow, little bend. Right arm, the arm over the ear doesn't have to be super straight. All right, you can bend the elbow as much as you need here. And maybe again, start to gently turn the left side of the chest to the right. Maybe look under the right arm. Watch that right hip. Don't let it hike up. Again, you know what to do if it does. One more breath, again, maybe reaching just like another ½ inch over to the left. And then come up. And now we're going to take this to a twist. All right, so turning, and this is the first twist of this class, so take it a little easy. Drop the left hand to the right near your thigh, and then the right fingers go behind you, kind of lined up with that low back. All right, so you can press into the pads of the fingers of the palm to help you again lengthen up through the low back. Don't take the twist too deep. Twists are super good for the whole spinal health, spinal rotation, mobility. One more breath, turn back forward, and then take this twist to the left now. Not going too deep. All right, so you can still get a nice movement, mobility in the back without over cranking the spine to where you feel like, oh, I got to look over my back shoulder or I'm not really in this twist. No, sometimes it's better for us, especially if you experience any pain or tightness in that low back, to not twist as deep. Take another breath here. And then slowly turn forward. You're going to uncross the legs and we're going to come into child's pose. All right, so you can either here in child's have the knees in really close, inner knees, inner ankles touch. You can separate the feet a little wider, the knees a little wider, about hips distance, or you could go even wider. Bring the big toes to touch and knees as wide as the mat. And then wherever you've chosen to have the knees aligned, start to sink the hips back towards the heels, crawl the hands forward, and maybe there's space to drop the forehead to the mat, maybe the chest
lowers down closer to the mat. So here, this is a resting pose, child's pose, but we're making it a bit more active by consciously stretching the hips back towards the heels and consciously crawling the fingers forward a little more. And this is just kind of lengthening the whole spine. This is a nice stretch, a nice pose to rest in during a class if you get tired, but it's also really nice. You should feel that low back, that lumbar spine lengthening and stretching here. You can even bring your hand to the low back and kind of just gently stretch it back. Take another breath here in child's pose. And then you're going to come all the way up onto all fours, hands and knees into tabletop. All right, step the hands in now so they're about shoulder distance. Knees are about hips distance. Shift forward just a bit so the shoulders are right over the wrist and the hips are right over the knees. You can keep the tops of the feet pressing into the mat, or some people like to tuck the toes, lift the heels. Around the spine, tuck in chin to chest, belly up towards the spine as we find cat pose. And then exhale, go the other way. Open the chest forward, broaden across the collarbones, gaze forward into cow. And you're going to keep going back and forth like this several rounds. So cat, cow, a little sequence, two poses that I do in almost every class I teach, usually at the beginning of class, but sometimes throughout the practice. And it's just a nice, easy warm up for the whole spine, not just that low back, but the upper back and the sacral area and the neck as well. Just a couple more, just really easy, fluid. Once again, introducing that mobility and movement into the back. All right, come to a neutral tabletop. Reach the right leg long to the back of the mat so the toes are tucked and the knee and shin are lifted and you're pressing back through the right heel. Take the left arm long by the ear, reach out long through the fingertips. And now all we're going to do is float the right foot up. Keep the foot flex so the toes point down, and this is tiger pose. And we're just going to stay here 2 or 3 breaths. So again, you want to lengthen. Reach a little more through the left fingers, push back a little more through the right heel. And this, again, nice decompression and lengthening and a nice big stretch for that low back and the whole spine. One more breath on this side, and then slowly return to all fours, hands and knees. Take the left leg long back of the mat, tuck the toes, engage that leg, push back through the heel. Take the right arm long by the ear, keep gazing down at the mat, and then float the left foot up. Keep the toes pointing down so that leg isn't lifting very high. It's not lifting very high, but you're really deeply flexing the foot, and you're lengthening through both sides here, lengthening the spine as well as that arm and leg. One more breath. Return back slowly to tabletop. You're going to keep the right hand pressing into the mat. You're going to take the left arm to the sky. So kind of turn open, look up towards the left hand, take a little twist here, and then keep watching that left hand. Trace the path as you thread it under the right arm. You're going to lower onto the left side of the head and keep the hips high. And this is thread the needle pose. So you're on that left outer shoulder, left side of the head. The hips are higher now, not sinking back like we did a little bit ago in child's pose. This is a different pose. Again, you can keep tops of feet flat. You can tuck the toes. The right hand now, you can choose. You can keep it where it is on the mat, elbow bent and lined with the head. You can start to reach it long by the ear. Maybe crawl the fingers forward, opens up a little more stretch in the shoulders and upper back. Last option, you could sweep that right arm behind the back into what we call half bound variation, half bind. Maybe the right fingers can connect to the left thigh. 3 more breaths here. So this is a nice rotation, a nice twist, shoulder opener, chest opener. Take one more breath, and then you're going to bring the right hand to the mat, press down through the hand, keep the chin a little tucked to begin as you peel that left arm back to the sky, back to that twist, and then exhale, returning back to all fours for side 2. Open to the right, turn, look at the hand, keep watching the hand, trace the path of that hand as it threads under the left, and then you lower onto that right outer shoulder, side of the head, Get situated. Make sure again hips are high. Begin to turn a little more through right side of the chest. Same options with that left hand. Keep it where it is. Extend it long by the ear. It gets a little more on the upper shoulder and back. Or you can sweep it behind you to half bind. Let's take 3 more breaths here and thread the needle. Opening the chest, the upper back, and also kind of relieving a little pressure in the low back because we are twisting here. Take another breath in and out, and then bring the left hand to the mat. Press down as you slowly open right arm back to the sky. Exhale, come back to tabletop. From here, tuck the toes, step the feet back, and lift to a high plank. Legs are straight. And then exhale, you're going to reach the hips up to the sky and arrive in downward facing dog. So take a couple of breaths to set up this pose. Again, creating in the mind this V shape with the body, letter V. The feet are about hips distance. You're always welcome to take them a bit wider if that makes your low back feel better. Bend the knees a little or a lot if that makes your low back or hamstrings feel better. The hands are about shoulder distance. We're focusing here on externally rotating the upper bicep. So imagine for a moment someone's putting their thumbs, their fingers, their hands on those upper biceps and just very gently rotating the skin outward. That broadens across the chest and the upper back, gives us more space to breathe. Take one more breath here in downward dog. So keep the neck nice and neutral here in this pose. Whenever you're in this pose, get gazing back at the tips of the toes. One more breath and then bend the knees. And we're going to walk to the top of the mat. Press the palms to the shins. And as you do, gaze forward to the top of the mat, kind of stick the butt out a little bit. And then as you exhale, we're going to come into a standing forward fold. So have yoga blocks nearby. If the mat's a little far, you're straining to reach the mat. And again, here too, bend the knees generously. This is tight. I know a lot of athletes have super tight hamstrings, so these forward folds, not the easiest for them, but very important poses, all of these folds, because they do stretch out and lengthen the hamstrings. Also, for our purposes today in this particular class, coming into these forward folds, whether they're from a seat or standing, really nice to like kind of decompress and lengthen out that low back. So if your back's really hurting, this is another good pose, but maybe again, support it a little more by having those hands on the blocks. You're not straining to reach the mat. From here, bring the hands to the hips, really ground through the feet, support, round all the way up to stand, and pause here a moment. Release the arms by the sides. Kind of roll the shoulders back a little, ground through the feet, lengthen up. So here again, just standing. All we're doing is standing here. But I want you again to really experience, like we did in that cross leg position we were sitting down a bit ago, lengthening up from the low back. You can even bring the hand again to the low back and kind of spread the palms across and feel how you're not collapsing in, how you're not rounding here, not rounding the shoulders, hunching over. Find length. Envision you've got a cord attached to the top of your head and someone's hanging out in the ceiling above you and slowly pulling that cord up to lengthen. So kind of practice these little drills just to find that good posture and that just not collapsing into the back, not slouching. That could be a big factor in helping to relieve any low back pain. All right, take the arms overhead. Hold on to the left wrist with the right fingers, kind of circle it. And now come into a standing side bend over to your right and bump the left hip out a little bit to the left. So again, creating space in the side body, which is going to help also alleviate any tension and tightness in the low back. As you inhale, rise, change the grip, and then exhale, take a nice deep side bend over to your left side and bump that right hip off to the right a bit. All spine inhale. Join the palms overhead, gaze up towards the sky. And then as you exhale, slowly fold back down to your mat. Again, have those blocks within reach. Press the palms to the shins, gaze forward, flat back. And then exhale, folding over the legs again. Circle the arms overhead as you rise. Join the palms, gaze up towards the sky. With your exhale, release the arms by the sides, roll the shoulders back, stand tall. We're going to do that 2 more times and then add on a little more. Inhale, circle up, gaze up, lengthen up through sides of waist and ribs, and especially from that low back. Exhale, dive back down to the ground. Take a half lift, inhale, gaze forward, and then exhale, fold deeply. Rise up, inhale, lengthen, grow a little taller each time you rise up. With your exhale, release the arms by the sides, gaze forward, tall spine. Inhale, again, circle up. Exhale, dive down to these half sun salutations we're doing. It's also a nice overall whole body warm-up. Press the palms to the shins, gaze forward, half lift, flat back. Exhale, fold deeply. Rise, inhale, circle up, join the palms overhead, and then exhale, release the arms by the side. So we're going to add on to that now. Those were half sun salutations. We're going to do 3 rounds of sun salutation A, adding on some more parts to it. Inhale, once again, sweep the arms overhead, palms tap. Exhale, fold down, and as you fold, it's fine to bend the knees on the way down. Press the palms to the shins, gaze forward. Bring the hands down, step to plank, drop back onto all fours, hands and knees. Round the spine in again for cat. Exhale, open the chest again for cow. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. We're back in downward facing dog. Take 2 breaths here. So take a big inhale through the nose, keep the lips closed. And then exhale the same way through the nose. And take 1 more big breath in like that. And then another full breath out. And then bend the knees, look to the top of the mat, walk yourself forward. Press the palms to the shins, again, gaze forward. Exhale, fold over the legs. Rise, inhale, circle the arms up, gaze up, lengthen. With your exhale, release the arms by the sides. Again, a little roll back of the shoulders. Check your posture here each time you stand. Let's keep going with that. Inhale, reach the arms overhead. And then exhale, fold back down to the ground. Press the palms to the shins as you gaze forward. Lower the hands to the mat. Step to high plank. Hold here, breath. Feel really strong and secure through the upper and lower body. Right and left side. 1 more breath. Take the hips back up. Maybe step the feet in a little closer. Drop the heart down to the mat as you reach the hips up to the sky. And once again, 2 full breaths here in downward facing dog pose. Reminder to bend the knees. This feels tight in the low body and the hamstrings, the low back. You can bend the knees more. You can take the feet a little wider than hips distance. On your next inhale, bend the knees, look to the top of the mat, walk yourself forward. Once again, press the palms to the shins, open the chest. Exhale, fold. Rise up tall, inhale, sweep the arms overhead. Exhale, release the arms by the sides. Again, roll the shoulders back, stand up tall, lengthen. Practicing every time we stand top of the mat, that nice tall posture so we're not dumping into the low back, collapsing the spine, perhaps causing that low back tension. Let's do 1 more of those. Inhale, circle the arms up, and then exhale, dive back down to the mat. Take a half lift, inhale, hands down, step to plank. This time you're going to lower all the way to the mat, so you can either come down through top of a push-up or drop the knees to the mat and lower all the way down. Lengthen the legs, walk the inner knees together. Press the top of the feet into the mat. Forehead down, chest down. Step the hands in by the outer ribs, bend the elbows, kind of hug the outer ribs in. And then inhale, lift the head and shoulders into cobra pose. So these gentle back bends we're going to do throughout the practice can really help now strengthen that low back. So we've done lots of stretching, lots of releasing, lots of decompressing. We need to do some strengthening as well. 1 more breath. Lower the forehead down. Tuck the toes. Rise to your high plank. Lift the hips up. Back to downward facing dog. Once again, 2 breaths here. Breathing in through the nose. and out through the nose. Reminder, we do that. We don't open the lips to exhale, not normally. Makes for a more efficient breath so we don't get as tired, out of breath, and we can stay in the practice that much longer. From here, you're going to take the right leg to the sky to a three-leg dog. You're going to step it forward, keep both hands on the mat, and arrive in a runner's lunge pose. So hands down. Again, you can use blocks under the hands if you're straining to reach the mat. The left toes are tucked, left heel is lifted, left leg is super straight and strong and supported. You're going to keep the left hand on your mat or block. You're going to spin the right arm to the sky and come into an easy twist. Turn and look at the right hand if you can. Make sure the right hip isn't traveling off to the side. Keep it in the center. One more breath, slowly, hands down. Step to plank pose. And again, you're going to lower all the way down to your mat. Drop into the knees, or if you have a lot of good upper body strength, it's not tensing your shoulders, you can lower down through the top of a push-up. Once again, lower the forehead to the mat. Legs are long, a little different this time. You're going to sweep the arms back by the outer hip. So the palms kind of face in, facing the outer thighs. We're going to do locust pose, but we're going to do it in 3 parts. First part, the lower body is going to stay down. We're going to take an inhale, lift just the head and shoulders. You could also float the arms up so the palms again kind of hover facing in. So ground through the legs, press the top of the feet in. See if that can help you lift up a little bit higher. Don't worry if it can. Again, this is about strengthening the back. Slowly lower the forehead down. All right, that was part 1. Part 2, we're going to do the opposite. The upper body is going to stay down. The forehead, the chest, the belly, and we're going to lift just the legs. So point the toes, lengthen the legs out a little, and then lift the legs up. So most of us can get at least the tops of the feet, tops of the ankles lifting, maybe a little bit, tops of the shins, maybe even the kneecaps, maybe a little bit upper thigh, but not. Don't worry if you can't. That's a lot. One more breath. Lower the legs down. Rest a moment, and then we're going to put both of those together, part A and part B, and make it full locust pose. So first, lift the head and shoulders and float the arms up. Now add the legs. Point the toes, lengthen the legs. See, once again, if you're able, maybe just an inch, lift the head and shoulders a little higher. Again, this is full locust pose. Another pose, again, to strengthen that low back, the whole spine. One more breath, lower all the way down. Turn one cheek to the mat. We're going to bend the knees, flex the feet here, and let the feet drift side to side. Let them go. This is another one. These kind of windshield wiper feet, legs, to relieve the low back. The low back's really tight and sore. Those forward folds are great. The laying on the back that we opened with, circling around in the low back is great. This one's great. And we'll show you, we'll go through a couple of others later in the class to help really, if it's really hurting, like you can't even straighten up, some of these can do some real good to help alleviate and decompress the spine. All right, lower the legs down, return the forehead to the mat. Step the hands in by the ribs, bend the elbows, tuck the toes, push yourself back to high plank, lift the hips up, back to downward facing dog. Let's take the left leg now to 3-leg dog. And then exhale, take a big step forward, both hands down. Again, use your blocks if you're straining. Don't strain to reach the mat. Use those yoga blocks, or if you have something that you're using instead of a block, use those under the hands. Keep the right hand down, spin open to the left, and that easy twist. Just one more breath. Turn forward. Step to plank. You're going to drop onto the knees. You're going to slide through, come on to elbows, forearms, and find Sphinx pose. So we're going to do a different back bend this round. So this one is a little bit gentler, perhaps, than the cobra or the locust. Most students seem to be able to do this pose relatively easily. It's not as big of a back bend, but it is a back bend. And what you want to do here is not round the spine. It's really easy here to kind of let the chest start collapsing. Instead, you want to lift the chest, gaze out in front of you.
Ground firmly through the palms and forearms, almost like you're trying to drag the elbows back towards the chest, lift up from the low back. So again, here practicing, even in this gentle back bend, that nice good posture. One more breath here in Sphinx. And then lower the forehead down. Once again, step the hands in by the ribs, bend the elbows, tuck the toes, rise to your high plank. Take the hips up into downward facing dog. All right, in this downward dog, we're going to change this just a little, and we're going to make it a narrower downward dog. You're going to start to walk the feet in 1 or 2 steps closer to the mat. So that will cause the heels to lift higher. Then walk the hands back 1 or 2 hand lengths. So now we have this really skinny, narrow V shape. And now let the head hang down. Really let it down. So this is a nice one too. Decompresses the spine, really gets that spine just in that perfect spot. Take 2 more breaths here. You can still bend the knees here, even though you have that shorter stance. 1 more breath. All right, from here, kind of bend the knees, lower them down to the mat, and come lay all the way on your back. So another part mentioned earlier, one potential cause, reason to have low back pain is a weak core. So core, the abdominals mostly, but also the inner thighs and the glutes need to be strong to alleviate the back pain and just to kind of really support the whole body, especially the trunk, the midsection of the body. So what we want to try to do, you should try at least a few times a week to incorporate some type of gentle core work into your practice and there's into your exercise routine, your fitness routine. And there's many, many, many ways, as I know a lot of people don't like crunches. They don't like the traditional stuff. There's so many different ways to work your core. Just holding plank pose can be a great core strengthener. So find something that works for you, that you like, that you enjoy, and it will have benefits, in particular, as it relates to the low back. All right, from here, we're going to stretch the legs long. And we're going to also take the arms long overhead. So before we start this core work, these hollow holds, let's just kind of stretch out long through the right, left side and then through the right side and just kind of maybe alternate arm and leg, alternate arm and leg. So you want to really get long here, as long and tall and stretched out as possible. And then lift the head and shoulders and the arms. The arms are kind of in line with the ears. And then you're going to float the legs up and point the toes. So this is what we call a hollow hold position. It's a very challenging core work, really gets especially into that lower core. From here, you're going to circle the arms around and hug the knees to the chest. And then exhale, return to that hollow hold, arms and legs straight. Keep going, sweep around, hug in. Exhale, extend long. You're going to keep going here a few more rounds. Curling in, reaching long. If you find, because you keep the head and shoulders lifted the whole time, that your neck starts to get a little tight and sore, you're welcome to bring like one hand behind the head and support the head and just reach one arm long overhead. Otherwise, let's get 2 more. Circle in, reach long. Last one, hug in close. Reach long, hold here, lengthen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, lower onto the back, give the knees a little hug in, just for a moment, like we did opening pose, rock a little right and left. We have 1 more part to this core work. So that was really good for upper and lower abs. We're going to do just a little something for the obliques here. So bring the legs up to the sky. Knees can be bent. This is really simple. Bring the hands behind the head. You're going to lift up to center. And all we're going to do is just twist side to side, aiming the elbow outside the opposite knee. Round the tailbone. Don't bring the legs closer to the body. Rather, bring the upper body closer to the legs. Now, you can keep the hands behind the head as you continue twisting a few more rounds. Or, if you want, you could start to tap the fingers towards the opposite foot, like outer ankle or shin, or maybe you could reach up high enough and find the pinky toe without letting that low back lift up, without moving the legs towards you. 5, 4, 3, 2,
One. Release down. Once again, give yourself that hug. Rock a bit side to side, left and right. And then cross one ankle over the other. Use the momentum to rock yourself all the way up. Hands down. Once again, you're going to step back to high plank. Hold here 2 breaths. Again, just doing this. You don't like core work. You don't like crunches. You don't like bicycles. This here works the whole body, but in particular, really great strengthener for the core. Take the hips up, back to downward facing dog. Let's take 2 breaths here before we start to move a little bit more. Again, breathing in through the nose and then exhaling the same way. During your next inhale, take the right leg back to the sky to 3-leg dog. You're going to step it forward, ground the back foot, and we're going to rise up to warrior 2 pose. So right knee right over that right ankle. Back leg, left leg is straight, the left toe slightly angled in, and we're grounding really firmly through that back foot, especially the outer edge. That's going to activate that left leg and also distribute the weight a little more evenly between both legs, front and back. Tall spine here. So gaze out over the right fingers rather. Stretch out long through both arms. Lift up tall. Again, imagine that invisible cord at the top of the head pulling you up, lengthening up from the low back. Take the right palm to the sky now, and you're going to sweep it up and back into a side bend into reverse warrior pose. Right arm by the ear, left hand slides down along the outer thigh towards the outer knee, and maybe we bend a little more deeply if we can into the right knee. All right, stay in the side bend, just begin to straighten the right leg, and now we're in reverse triangle pose. Hold this one more breath. And then rebend the right knee back to warrior 2. From here, just simply circle the hands to the mat. Step back to plank. And lift the hips back up to downward facing dog. Left side now, take the left leg up to the sky to 3-leg down dog. Take a big step forward. Ground both feet. And bring yourself up tall into warrior 2 pose. So just spend a couple breaths here. Again, we're looking for here, tall spine, good posture, grounding through both feet, distributing the weight between the bent knee and the straight leg. Turn the left palm to the sky, and then you're going to sweep that left arm up and back over the air. Come into that side bending pose, that reverse warrior position. Maybe if it's there, again, slightly deeper bend into the left knee. Stay in the side bend. Begin to slowly straighten the left knee, but again, never locking the knee out. Little softness in the knee. Take one more breath in this big side bend. And then you're going to rebend the left knee into warrior 2, arms to a T. Circle the hands to the mat. Step back to plank pose. Lift the hips back up to downward facing dog. All right, from here, from this downward dog, you're going to step the feet in close so the mounds of the big toes touch. You're going to roll to high plank from here, and you're going to bring the left hand to the center of the mat, and you're going to bend that left elbow and come onto elbow form. From here, you're going to roll onto the outer edge of the left foot and come into a forearm side plank. All right, so if you're feeling really wobbly here with the feet stacked, try staggering the feet. So the right foot would be in front, you'd be on the big toe mound, and the left foot in the back, you'd be on the pinky edge side. Let's bring the right hand to the hip. And we're just going to do this 3 times. You're going to dip that left hip to hover, and then lift it back up to where we started. And 2 more times. Then it's okay to bend the knees as you dip that hip, and then lift it up, and then 1 more time, dip. Don't let it touch, let it hover. Come back up. Free the arm to the sky, hold a breath, come all the way back to forearm plank, come on to the hands to high plank, take the hips up to downward dog, but keep the feet together. Take a breath here before we do that on side 2. First we roll to high plank. Next is to bring the right hand center mat. Next would be to bend the elbow and bring the forearm to the mat. Then we roll outer edge of right foot. Find that forearm side plank again. Maybe stagger the feet, gives you a little more support, a little more balance as we come into those hip dips. And now you're going to bend and dip that right hip to hover, and then lift it back up. Two more, little hip dip, hip lift. One more time, dip, hover, lift up, take the left arm to the sky, hold here breath, and then come back to your forearm plank. Back to your high plank on the hands, straighten the arms, lift the hips up, downward dog, separate the feet back to hips distance or a little wider. Take a breath or two here. Maybe just observing in this pose. Just the low back. Feel now a little more stretch, a little more length, a little less congestion perhaps. If it was tight, maybe it doesn't feel quite so tight right now. Bend your knees, look forward, and then walk yourself to the top of the mat. Pop the hands to the hips, and then bring yourself all the way up to stand. From here, you're going to take a big step out, face the side of your mat, take a wide leg stance, kind of wiggle the feet wider if you can, turn the toes slightly in. Bring the hands to the hips and open the chest to the sky. Start to squeeze the shoulder blades together, and then slowly begin to come into a forward fold. Take your time here, and I want you to pause about halfway down with a flat back. And then slowly keep going. Maybe have blocks within reach. Again, if you're straining to reach the mat, you don't want to strain. Otherwise, drop the hands to the mat, right under the chest first before we fold, gaze forward to lengthen the spine, open the chest. And now exhale, coming into a wide leg forward fold. Nice wide leg fold. Maybe walk the feet a little wider. Again, let the spine hang down, crown of the head hang down. So this is just like all those other forward folds we did in those half sun salutations, but with the legs in this wider stance. Gets a little more into the outer hips here. Take two more breaths here. And then one more. And then slowly lift the chest a little. Begin to walk the feet in one at a time or both together. Step them in close. Bring the hands to the hips and rise all the way up to stand. And then from here, walk back, turn back to the top of the mat. Inhale, reach the arms overhead once again, join the palms once again, lengthen up once again. And then exhale, fold back down to the mat. Step back to plank. Drop onto the knees, keep the toes tucked, walk the hands in and come all the way up onto the shins. So another back bend. We're doing these different variations. We've done so far cobra, locust pose, Sphinx pose. We haven't done upward dog. We're not going to get to that one today, but we are next going to come into camel pose. Little bigger, slightly bigger back bend, but we'll take it in stages so you can keep it pretty easy here. So have the knees point forward. They're not quite as wide as hip distance, a little wider, but there is a bit of space between the knees here. Toes are tucked so we can lift the heels, and the hip points stay facing forward in front of you the whole time. Begin by bringing the hands to the low back, so the heels of the palms are kind of pressing into the low back, and the fingertips are stretching down to the mat. Begin to lift the chest, arch the spine. Continue to keep the chin slightly tucked as you open the chest more. And then if your neck feels happy, you can look up towards the sky. If it feels real happy, you can let it fall back, but be real careful, mindful of the neck here. This is camel pose. You want to again keep the hip flexors, hip points facing forward, squaring off the hips. If this feels like enough right now, stay here. If you want to go one more step, you start to stretch the fingertips back and they land on those heels that might be a little too deep for you. So come back, keep the hands at the low back. Take one more breath and then slowly rise up. Come all the way forward, lean forward, hands down. Let's here on hands and knees, take 2 rounds of cat-cow. Curl in for cat. Exhale, open up for cow. One more time, round the spine. Exhale, open the chest. Lift the hips back up. to downward facing dog. Let the spine hang down again. Kind of feeling maybe a little more length in the spine, a little less congestion, tightness in that low back. Let's take the right leg to the sky to three-leg dog. Now, as you exhale, step it through. Keep both hands to the inside of the right foot. You're going to drop the left knee down, slide the left leg back a little, flatten the foot, and we're going to take just about 3 or 4 breaths in lizard pose, which is a hip opener. But we can also make this an exercise in lengthening through the spine. So sometimes in lizard, we go really deep. We come onto the forearms. We bow the head down. For this class, I want you to keep the chest lifted, and I want you to be reaching the chest forward. You can still sink a little deeper into that right knee, but begin here kind of with a little bit of a diagonal stretch to feel the spine lengthening. So it's not rounding. A lot of times we round, but here for today, for one more breath, lengthen the spine. Tuck the left toes, float the left knee up, step the right foot to plank, lift the hips up to downward facing dog. Take the left leg up into three-leg dog pose. Exhale, step it through. Drop into the right knee, both hands inside the left foot, and you can use a block under the hands, by the way. We're not going as deep into lizard as we do sometimes, but again, if you're straining to reach the mat with the hands, have a block there. Scoot the right leg back, right knee back a little, lengthen a little more. And again here, we're looking for length in the chest. So now, that invisible cord that we had attached to the crown of the head, now it's attached to, say, the breastbone, the sternum. And someone's out in front of us, and they're kind of pulling that cord forward. So that's how much openness you want in the chest and how much length you want in the spine. One more breath. All right, from here, come on to all fours, hands and knees. And from here, you're going to find your way to a seat. So if you brought a blanket along, a folded blanket for a cushion, you could get that now to sit on, because we're going to take about 3 seated poses. Also have a block nearby. It might come in handy if you brought a block. Let's start with the legs long in front of us. And flex the feet. And drop the hands to the mat outside the hips. Curl the toes back towards the face. And lengthen out through the spine. So you're not really tucking the chin in here, but you are kind of gazing down, say, the bridge of the nose. And you're lengthening, lifting up. So this is staff pose, but often thought of seated mountain pose. So think about all the times we stood at the top of the mat in this class, lengthening up through the crown of the head, lifting up from the low back. Same actions here, exact same actions, only differences instead of standing, we're in a seat. Take one more breath here, maybe lengthen up a little more. And now from here, you're going to keep the left leg long. You're going to step the right foot in, and then you're going to bend the knee off to the side and come into a seated tree pose. So you want to press the sole of the right foot against the inner left thigh. The right knee opens to the side. If the knee isn't coming easily to the mat, it's like up in the air, that's where you would get a block and plop it under. You could also use like a roll towel or a t-shirt. You shouldn't need a lot of support, but make sure that that knee is supported. Then when that knee is nice and stable, both sit bones are stable, we're going to angle slightly over the left leg. Not a twist. We'll get to the twist next. Kind of just slightly. So you're not facing directly forward. You're just a very slight angling over that leg. Flex the foot, lengthen through the spine. And then as you exhale, you're going to start to walk the hands out and drop down into a nice forward fold. So think here, not how I can get my forehead to the knee, or I can grab hold of my foot with the hands. What we're looking for here is lengthening from the spine. So sometimes these forward folds are very challenging because we have tight hamstrings, but also because we have a tight low back. So instead of grounding the spine, kind of like we did in that lizard, lengthen the spine. Find that cord on the chest and pull it forward. So maybe instead of rounding here,
trying to have the goal of dropping the forehead down to the leg. Instead, we find length in the spine and look, say, at the left big toe. Stay here one more breath and seat a tree, first side. And then slowly walk the hands in till you're sitting up tall. Lift the right knee, slide that leg to straight, and then take side two. Step the left foot in first, and then begin to open it out to that seated tree. Okay, sole of foot against inner thigh. And again, it's the left knee. So on this side, my left knee, I can't ground it. So I support it. You get a block. You could again use a roll towel or a t-shirt, something softer to support it. And then again, once that knee is set, once your sit bones are grounded, angle slightly over the right leg. You want to really be flexing that foot to engage that right quad and hamstring. Lengthen. And then again, start that fold at the low back. So that's where it originates. And then you keep it going. You don't round here, no tucking in chin to chest. Don't worry if you could never, ever in your entire life get your forehead to the shin. You want to lengthen here. Keep the chest open. Remember the cord on the chest, pulling you forward, opening. So focusing, yes, on stretching the hamstring, but really lengthening, expanding from the low back. One more breath. Slowly walk the hands in. From here, we're going to take a twist, a seated twist, different than the one we did earlier. You're going to bend the right knee in, like you did, like you're coming into a cross-leg position, except this time, you're going to step the left foot and ground it outside the right knee. So the knee points up, sole of foot is grounded. Super important here that both butt cheeks are grounded. So if the left one's hiking up, you don't have a folded blanket or cushion to sit on, you could wiggle the right heel in and sit on the right heel. All right, wrap the arms around that left shin and hug the thigh close to the belly. Keep the right arm wrapped around the knee or shin. Slowly start to turn open to your left. And once again, you're going to drop the left fingers behind you. Use those fingers as kind of a lever, an assist, as you press into them to once again help you lengthen. So no collapsing here, no rounding, dumping in. Length. Not so much about how much you rotate, not so much about the extent of the twist, but about the tall spine, the good posture. Once again, 2 more breaths here. Take another inhale and exhale. And then slowly come out, retreat out from this twist, turn back to face forward. And just shift and take the second side. So bend the left shin in like you're coming into that cross-leg position again. You can pick up the right foot or just kind of wiggle it across. Ground it outside the left knee so the foot is grounded, knee points up. Both sit bones check to make sure they're supported on something, even if it's the left heel. Hug that right side of the belly, sit up really tall, and then slowly start to revolve. To your right, drop the right fingers behind you. Again, pressing into the pads of those fingers. A little assistant, like a little prop to help you lengthen here. 2 more easy breaths. Again, resist the urge if your neck is tight to turn so deep you're looking over that right shoulder. Not necessary here. 1 more breath. Slowly turn forward, uncross the legs, and come lay on your back. So have a block handy. If you brought one, if you keep one handy, you can use it here. A couple of different things. So the first thing we're going to do is just come into a nice easy bridge pose. Another back bend. A lot of back bends. And again, the back bends that we've been doing, the purpose of them is to kind of strengthen the back. Strengthen the back. And also this one in particular that we're doing, this bridge pose, is another good one. I mentioned all these poses that we've been doing. If you have really tight low back, a lot of intense back pain, the windshield wiper on the belly, the rotating around, the forward folds, etc. This is another good one to kind of really flush out, decongest, whatever term you want to use to help alleviate some of that low back pain. So if you have a block, go flat setting or maybe medium setting if you want to go a little higher up.
Feet hips distance, knees right over the ankles. Press down through the feet, lift the hips up, maybe pop that block under you. Right? Kind of roll the shoulders under you. If you're not using a block, you can just hold, 2, 3, 4 breaths, and then when you're tired, you can lower down. If you're on the block, I'm going to show you in a moment. I just want you to stay in this bridge pose, 2 or 3 more breaths. I'm going to go through a couple of different variations here. If you're on the block or you don't have a block. And these next two poses are really, really good. They're kind of go-to poses I use when my low back is really tight, and I try to hold them for as long as I can, not like 10 minutes long, but 2, 3 minutes, maybe longer if I have time, if it feels okay. And those just really do the work the longer you can stay in of really relieving that back pain. So the first thing you could do, if you're on the block, you have the support of the block, you would bend the knees to the chest and then slowly bring the legs up to the sky. And again, it's fine to bend the knees. So this is what we call supported shoulder stand. Shoulder stand is a little more advanced pose, and I rarely, if ever, teach that in a Zoom practice because there's a lot of things going on. You have to be super careful of the neck. It's not a really hard pose, but there's a lot of little intricacies, and it's a little difficult to express that properly on Zoom. It's a thing I teach in person, but not online. But this is a supported shoulder stand, and most of you could do this with a block under you. It's safe. You're not tweaking the neck out. And, the knees can be bent. And this just feels really nice to hold for a while. Really kind of, not only is it good for the back, but it's also good for the legs. So it kind of flushes the blood, oxygen out of the legs, kind of decompresses the legs, gives them a little rest. It's considered like a little mini inversion. We're taking the weight off the legs and just kind of letting them rest and reset. If you didn't bring a block or this feels uncomfortable to hold for too long, what you would do is find your way. I don't have a chair nearby, but I do have a little sofa here. You would scoot in close to your chair or sofa, lower the head and shoulders down so you're resting flat on the ground. And you get in close enough to your piece of furniture that you can bend the knees and bring the backs of the legs onto your chair or sofa. And this here, you could hang out in quite a bit longer. You could hang out here 5 minutes. If the place where you're practicing or where your chair is, it's a hardwood floor, excuse me, you might want to get like a blanket underneath you, not a pillow, because you don't want to like lift the head up. You want the back of the spine fairly flat on the ground. But I understand if it's a cold floor, it might feel nice to have like a little flat blanket under you. All right, if you're on the block and the legs are lifted, begin to bend the knees and bring the feet to the mat, back to that supported bridge. And then finally, lift the hips up, move your block to the side. And everybody come back. If you ventured away and went to the chair or sofa, come back to your mat. All right, let's bring soles of feet to touch and knees open wide. Rest the arms by the side and take 3 or 4 breaths here in reclined butterfly pose. So after the back bend and the shoulder stands, just a little counter pose. And what you want to really feel here, you could even bring the hands to the belly. You just really want to feel, once again, that connection, gentle press of the low back into the mat. Little hip opener too. Take one more breath here. And then bring the hands outside the knees and help the knees to lift, reground the feet back to that bridge preparation pose. You're going to take the right knee to the chest, and now you're going to cross the right ankle outside the left knee, flex the foot, and find figure four, reclined figure four pose. And let's do a few breaths here. So hip opener here, yes. Knee stretch, inner thigh stretch. Just another nice opportunity to kind of practice the grounding, gentle press of the low back into the mat. One more breath. Uncross the ankle, bring the foot to the mat. Take the left knee in now. Let's take reclined figure four on the left side. So you could take the left hand to the left knee and just really gently press the knee away, trying subtly to bring the shin a little more parallel, but don't force the knee. If it's tight, you can angle it a little bit more and decrease. Take 2 more breaths. And one more. All right, uncross the ankle. We're going to take one more pose and be a reclined twist. All right, so you're going to walk the feet for this twist. You're going to walk the feet about as wide as the mat. Have the knees point up. First, ground the shoulder blades. So here you can have the elbows bent, you can have the arms straight, you can have them any degree in between those two positions. You're just going to start to let the knees drift over to your right. So don't expect the right knee is going to come to the ground. It doesn't have to. And that left hip, yes, the left hip will start to hike up. Once you've got the knees in a good position, the lower legs in a good position, start to turn the chest over to your left. So lower body goes one way, upper body goes another. Maybe look over the left shoulder, maybe look up towards the ceiling. And take 3 more breaths here. So again, twists. Anytime you do a twist, whether it's on the back or standing or in a seat, just be mindful of how deep you go. If your low back is tight, sore, tense, it'll let you know because it won't feel too nice when you go too deep. So that'll be your signal to immediately back off and not over twist. Slowly come flat onto the back, knees point up. Begin to let the knees drift over to the left. And then slowly, when you're ready, start to turn left side of the chest over to the right. Get a couple more easy breaths here. Twists are always a good idea for the whole back, the whole spine, for the chest to decrease stress and tension in the body. One more breath. All right, roll onto the back. Hug the knees in. One more time, like we opened with. Rock a little right and left. Maybe again, taking those little circles around, giving the low back a little self massage there. One of those numerous feel good poses, releasing poses for the back. And that is going to conclude this practice on low back, happy low back, healthy low back, reducing, hopefully, low back pain, preventing low back pain. So again, important there to stretch, to kind of massage, feel good, but also to strengthen the low back. And all those back bends we did all contribute to that strengthening. Hope you enjoyed. Once again, reach out anytime with questions, and I hope you can join me for another class real soon. Have a great one. Thank you.